Kagali wakes up free from Kondo's control, but not free from the Celestial Palace. Yuuki is still hollow. Dino knows more than he will say, and a sealed origin point world has no obvious exit. Then Teare and Footman return to her side, only for Gnome Vega's cells and Zarario's judgment to show Kagali exactly how trapped she really is. AI Anime and Manga presents. If this part works for you, like, comment, and subscribe so more slime fans find the story. YouTube members get upcoming episodes early and help cover the AI narration, subtitles, thumbnails, and rendering that keep the channel moving. Now let's return to the Celestial Palace, where Kagali's survival depends on learning who holds the leash before the audience chamber opens. Kagali came back to herself in a place she did not know. Several months earlier, Feldway had dragged her away from the battlefield, and at the same time Lieutenant Kondo died, the rule binding her mind snapped. When consciousness returned, she was no longer under his control. She was simply awake, confused, and stranded in an unfamiliar world. Her first thought was a simple one. What was going on? She tried to understand the situation. Then she noticed a familiar face nearby and breathed his name. Dino. Dino greeted her with his usual lazy ease. Yo. Looks like you're up, huh, Kazalim? Guess that guy Kondo is dead then. Kagali stiffened at the old name. You noticed I was. Oh, I'm sure the boss told you. Dino had used the name she had abandoned, and that alone surprised her. But when Kagali's eyes focused, she saw Yuuki sitting loosely in a chair, present in body but not in spirit. He looked as if he was not even there. Just like her, Yuuki had been placed under someone's rule. Once Kagali understood that, it no longer seemed strange that Yuuki might have revealed her identity to the world. Dino shrugged. Yeah, kind of. I don't know exactly what happened to you, but honestly, I like how you look now a lot better. Kagali looked nothing like the Demon Lord Kazalim anymore, and Dino had no problem saying so out loud. As detached as ever, Kagali thought. I can never read him. Oddly enough, that helped her relax. She did not have nearly enough fighting force at the moment. She might merit an over A rank, yes, but to the truly monstrous beings of the world, she was only another face in the crowd. Dino's powers were unknown, and Kagali knew she did not stand a chance against him. So she chose her best option, intelligence gathering. Kagali asked the first question that mattered. So where am I? Dino scowled before answering. You know it's not your own world, right? This is kind of a special place. It's right next to every world out there, but it's isolated from them too. The origin point. We call it the Celestial Palace. The name was unfamiliar, but several words cut through Kagali's confusion. The origin point. Could he mean the place where Veldanava the Star King Dragon was born? The origin point was the place said to exist before all worlds were created. It was a myth recorded only in old tales, something people claimed existed though nobody had ever seen it. Kagali could only ask, how? Dino scratched around the truth without giving it away. You need a key to go through the gate leading to here, but I didn't know what that key was either. But now that I've been taken here, I know how it works. Can't tell you, but that annoyed Kagali. But she remembered that Dino hated doing anything he considered unnecessary. If he was not going to tell her, she could not make him. She changed targets. Kagali softened her tone. Well, I won't force you, so if you can just tell me what you're able to. Dino groaned. Ugh, what a pain. Kagali pressed him with their long acquaintance. We've known each other a long time now. You could do at least that much for me. Dino clicked his tongue. Not that I get anything out of it. Kagali started to remind him. I seem to remember doing a lot of work for you. Before she could finish, Dino straightened up. What do you want to ask me? And when you do, you'll forget about the past for me, won't you? Kagali smiled. Yes, of course I will. Dino was the same as ever. That was a relief, even with everything else around her still buried in confusion. Kagali moved to the question she feared most. So our boss, Yuuki Kagurazaka there, why is he still being mind-controlled by someone? You said earlier that Kondo was dead, but... Wait, you don't mean... Dino's answer was blunt. You really are quick on the uptake, aren't you? I think you got it right, so I'll say it. You were being controlled by Kondo, but Yuuki over there was being controlled by the guy who lent that skill to Kondo. Kagali's suspicion became certainty. I knew it. She did not want to believe that someone could lend the power of mind control to others. But Dino was not the kind of liar who would invent an answer like that. If he did not want to admit something, he simply kept his mouth shut, and that made his words feel even more truthful. Yuuki was being controlled. His unique body could cancel out skills, and yet something had pierced through even that. It was terrifying. Kagali wanted to restore him to normal and escape this place, but she had no idea how. If that was the situation, then she needed to know who else remained. Kagali turned her attention behind her. "Where are my beautiful children?" Dino answered as if it was obvious. "You mean the guys standing behind you?" Kagali spun around. She had not detected anyone there before, and she could not have detected them as they were. They had gone into killing mode, following only her orders and no one else's. Kagali chided herself for panicking despite trying to stay calm. She canceled the order and brought Teare and Footman back to normal. Beside them stood roughly 9 unfamiliar walking dead lined up in silence. Kagali gave those bodies almost no attention. She did have vague memories from when her mind had been controlled. She remembered using the forbidden curse dead birthday as commanded, so these walking dead must have been created then. But she felt no personal attachment to them. She had never intended to create them in the first place. Teare burst back into her familiar energy. "Oh, hey, President! You're okay, huh? I was real worried." Footman followed with his grand theatrical rhythm. "I firmly agree with Teare, President. Did the boss save us?" Kagali corrected them. "No, he didn't, and there's no point hiding it, so I'll just say that we're in a terrible situation." She told the two of them what was going on. Dino had already fallen asleep, completely unbothered by being ignored. Teare drooped at the explanation. "Wow. Guess we didn't live up to expectations, huh?" Kagali reassured her. "Of course you did, Teare. Even the boss had his mind controlled. I'm sure there was nothing we could have done to resist it." Footman asked the practical question. "So now what'll we do? Are we just gonna go along with it?" Teare looked around and added, "Yeah? Can't we just escape? I don't see any guards." Kagali's answer was dark.